So, first of all, let me ask you a question. How many of you have ever brushed your teeth for a full 60 minutes? I think if I ask you that question, 100% of you will ask me, who brushes their teeth for 60 minutes? You'll brush your enamel off. You'll shred your gums. They'll start to bleed, right? But dire situations ask for dire acts. I have brushed my teeth for a full 60 minutes. It was worth the pain, but I still did it. But before I tell you the entire story, let me set the scene over here. Back that time, I was a 22-year-old intern traveling across Europe. And as most of the people in America know, young people go to Europe to learn the ways of life, right? I was also traveling in Europe to learn the ways of life. And one of the most important ways of life that I learned is that Europe is incredibly expensive to travel for a student. I was in London and I was looking for a cheap place to stay. And all across the European continent, there are youth hostels littered across all cities. Now, these youth hostels will offer you the bare necessities for you to just stay overnight. All that you will get in a youth hostel is a bed to sleep on the night. And I'm not talking about a king size, a queen size, a double, or even a twin bed. I'm just talking about a single bed, that too on a bunk bed. This is what you get in a youth hostel. Now, a regular room in one of these hostels will easily have around 5 bunk beds. So almost 10 people in a room. And a small hostel with 10 rooms will easily accommodate around 100 people. Now, a little bit of important fact to note is that most of these youth hostels are gender neutral. That means men and women will be sharing the same floor and the same room too. Even the bathrooms are gender neutral. Now, for somebody like me who was coming from India, living in such close contact with people of the opposite gender, who are not your immediate family, was extremely unnerving. Now, coming back to another important piece of the puzzle over here, running water is a very, very important luxury for young people who don't like to change their clothes that often. Now, the hostel figured out that instead of making 2 big bathrooms or 2 big showers, it was a much wiser idea to build 10 tiny showers so that in the morning the line does not build up too long. Now, this was roughly the scene in my hostel. There was a small corridor, and on either sides of the corridor, there were 5 bathrooms and 5 bathrooms, a total of 10. And right at the entrance of the corridor, there were some sinks on both the sides so that the residents could, shave, brush. And this is where a small problem became an opportunity. I told you that the shower stalls were small. What I didn't tell you was that the shower stalls were extremely tiny. Each shower stall was barely 3 feet by 3 feet. It was just enough space for an adult human to stand straight and let the water run on his face. If you tried to wash your feet, or if, God forbid, the soap fell from your hand, then your rear end will stick out into the corridor for the whole world to see. So these shower stalls were so small that you couldn't even change your clothes inside them. If you needed to take a shower, what you did was you went into your room, took your clothes off, put a small towel around yourself, walked over to the entrance of this whole corridor, waited in line with a towel wrapped around you, When your turn came, you went into the shower, took a shower, dried yourself off, clutched the towel around you, and then went back to your room and wore your proper clothes. Now, coming back to the old piece of detail, this was a gender neutral hostel. That means every morning there were women lining up to enter the shower wearing nothing but a towel around themselves. For somebody coming from India, this was like a visual delight. I was with five other friends, they were Europeans, and even they found this to be an all you can see visual buffet. But there was just one small problem over here. How do you just enjoy this visual delight, all you can see visual buffet, without looking like loitering lurkers and desperate young men? And that is where an idea struck us. We were six engineering students. Problem solving was in our genes. We were learning it in college all day. And we figured out that we might not get a lot of attention if we just stood around the sinks and brushed our teeth. Right? The ladies will just think that we are a bunch of young men who are extremely passionate about dental health. And anyways, none of the women were standing in the queue for that long to notice that it's just the same guys who have been brushing their teeth for the past 1 hour. So on this particular morning in the youth hostel in London, we brushed our teeth for a full 1 hour and then spent another 30 minutes flossing. Well, we could have gone the whole day or the whole morning, but after a certain point of time, human decency said, stop. And besides, our gums were starting to bleed. Let me come back to my disclaimer. The views expressed in the speech were those of a 22-year-old and bear no affiliation to this adult human who's telling you this